Hello, and welcome to the CoStar News Hotels podcast. I'm Natalie Harms, reporter for CoStar News, and today I'm joined by Matthew Merring, co founder of Outbound Hotels and executive vice president of hospitality at Waterton, which is Outbound's ownership group. Matt, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Natalie.
Well, let's just start with Outbound's origin story, which I think is super interesting. I want to know a little bit about how your career led to this and starting Outbound. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I started working in the hospitality business kind of right out of college. I worked with Club Med in both Mexico and Florida. So that's where I was really first exposed to the business, the hospitality business, and kind of got hooked right away. So after a stint at Club Med, I moved to Chicago and opened up some nightclubs, some restaurants, uh, went back and got my MBA, and kind of post MBA transitioned into the real estate side of the business, where I've spent the last 20 years of my career. So, working on the real estate side of the business, I've been really focused mostly on lifestyle hotels. Done a lot of kind of independent hotels, done some soft brands, developed some flag properties that skewed a little more lifestyle. But that's for food, beverage, and lifestyle hotels. That's kind of where I spent the bulk of my careers. My career. I think most notably or most germane to the Outbound story is I worked on 4 of the first 8 Moxies that Marriott rolled out. So it was a really just fascinating opportunity to get to see how a big company like Marriott rolls out a brand, and there's lots of lessons learned in that experience that we've subsequently applied to the brand. But fast forward to 2019, that's when I joined Waterton to head up their hotel investment platform. And really kind of when I joined, we shifted our focus into the lifestyle side of the business. And we ultimately developed, as part of that, the Outbound concept, which has been the focus of our platform for the last 4.5, 5 years. But really, Outbound was created to fill a gap in the hotel space. What we do is we provide memorable stays and great outdoor destinations, but it's at an approachable price point. So if you want to get outdoors, but still have kind of the creature comforts of a nice upscale full service hotel that reflects the locale, has a great sense of place, a good authentic local vibe. That's really the niche we fill in the space with Outbound. Personally, I've always enjoyed the intersection of travel, design, culture, and building community, and this is really an extension of my passion, what I've been doing for the last 20 years in the hotel space.
Yeah, it is really such an interesting and growing kind of intersection and niche. So I'm excited to talk a little bit more about that. I wonder if you could also tell me a little bit about kind of the relationship between Outbound and Waterton, which I think is operates a lot in the multifamily space, right? So how do y'all work together? How does that kind of business make a lot of sense?
Yeah, so we're a portfolio company of Waterton. And Waterton, as you alluded to, is very well known in the multifamily space, but we've also been involved in the hotel space since 2007. So it's been a natural extension of Waterton, but Waterton's the parent company, provides the
Mhm.
resources. We've been building essentially a company within a company
Mm.
is how we view it. We view ourselves, I guess, more as entrepreneurs than entrepreneurs. But yeah, we get all the benefits of having a large, established, sophisticated partner behind us like Waterton.
Yeah, best of both worlds for
Yeah.
sure. So tell me about where all Outbound has properties now. And I know we've got some new additions to that.
Mhm.
And maybe talk me through a little bit of what goes into identifying the locations that fall in line with that mission you mentioned.
Yeah. So I'll focus on the operating properties right now, and then we can jump into the pipeline a little further, more into the conversation. But our first Outbound property is in Jackson Hole. It's called the Virginian Lodge, and it's a 165 room hotel. It's on 8 acres. It has 2 food and beverage outlets, a lot of meeting space, and the crown jewel of the property is there's a internal courtyard, which is about an acre, and it's got pools, hot tubs, food and beverage space, unbelievable views of the Tetons. So that's really the focal point of the property. Our second property was in Mammoth, California, which is I'm actually doing this podcast from Mammoth today. And yeah, this was a 150 room property that we bought. We added 30 rooms to it. So it's a mix of kind of condo hotel units, which are currently for sale as branded residences. And we added additionally some standalone cabins. And it's a great property, Main and Main in the middle of Mammoth. And it's a really exciting project. And then our third operating property is in Stowe, Vermont, which we opened last fall, and that's an 80 room property. It's a mixture of cabins, some traditional rooms. It's got a really amazing pool, and it's on 10 acres, and great location in Stowe, just unbelievable real estate. So that opened in the fall, and another exciting property in the portfolio. But I think stepping back, what do we look for in markets? What do we look for in specific assets? As far as markets go, we are really just focused, in this first phase of Outbound on tier one iconic outdoor markets. So the markets I mentioned, plus some of the markets that we have in the pipeline in Yosemite National Park, in Sedona, Arizona, in our mind are iconic markets. They stand on their own. And so we've been very, very selective about what markets we go into as we've been rolling out the concept. We don't compromise on the markets, at least for the initial dozen or so properties. And that was a big lesson I actually learned from Marriott when they rolled out the Moxie concept, as they focused on New York, LA, Chicago, Miami. They focused really on tier one markets as they're trying to build the brand. And I think that's really smart, because you want your first dozen or so properties to be showpieces that you can show other potential developers, you can show lenders, you can show partners. And so we're really focused. We don't compromise on the markets we're in, very focused on kind of these iconic markets. As far as as assets go, what we look for on each asset is differentiation. We look for one or 2 points of differentiation we can either create with the property or the property inherently kind of possesses. Because our goal when we go into market is identify a comp set and be the best we can be in that comp set. We're not trying to compete with the Four Seasons or a luxury property, right? We're more in a 3.5, 4-star kind of price range. So, we identify who's the competition and how can we be different. That could be location, could be the bones of the building, could be amenities. So for instance, in Jackson, I mentioned the courtyard, but the first time we toured that property, it was, I sat with, I stepped aside with my partners and said, listen, this is special. It's totally underutilized. The current owners, it was an afterthought to the current owners, but if we really put an investment into this courtyard, build a new pool, build hot tubs, build fire pits, have the meeting space spill out here so it becomes an indoor-outdoor meeting space, have the food and beverage spill out in the courtyard. It's going to be really a special centerpiece of the property, and no one in town has anything close to what we could have if we do this right. So for that property, it had unique bones, but really the point of differentiation with the Jackson property was the courtyard. And then with Mammoth, Mammoth's got kind of 2 submarkets within the market. There's the base of the mountain, kind of ski in, ski out type properties. And there's the town of Mammoth, where most of the restaurants are, where the locals hang out, which in my mind is a much cooler scene than kind of up at the mountain. And so we like the Mammoth property because it's only full service property within the town. Number one. Number two is on 7 acres in a great location, and it allowed us to build the 30 new keys that I talked about. And really that allowed us to differentiate ourselves because we were the first new product built in town since 2006. So it allowed us to really program a property, have some spectacular outdoor spaces, but also come to market with some new inventory, which has really taken hold and been really well received by the travelers in the market. When you look at, and another unique thing, going back to Mammoth, another unique thing we're doing with Mammoth is we are selling 20 of the units that we built as branded residences, which we think is a huge opportunity in the space, especially at our price point. Most condo hotel kind of branded residence properties skew more luxury, very expensive, and we're kind of an approachable product from a price point perspective within the market. So we think it's a really interesting concept. Would like to roll out on future properties as well. And then finally going to Stowe, I mentioned it's on 10 acres, but it's an incredible real estate, irreplaceable real estate, great location. It's along a river. And it really, because we had some excess land, we built some A-frame cabins, which are really cool. Once again, have been really well received by uh, by the traveler. But all those properties, we looked at them and said, all right, what can we do? You know, what can we do to really make these things special, to differentiate them from the comp set and really make them stand out? So that's how we think through
Mhm.
kind of new projects.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel like it is a you get to be really picky with the real estate because you're obviously targeting these very key markets, and then you do have to find that right property too. But I think what's also I want to talk about with Outbound seeking to be more than a hotel. I know that's advertised on your website and everything, and I want to know I want to drill down into the specifics on that. What goes into kind of once you walk into an Outbound property, how do you take it to that last mile to being more than a hotel stay?
Yeah, so I think kind of each of our locations is really, it becomes a hub for the community, both locals and travelers, and you get a hub for connection. So I think stepping back, if you were going to sum up the mission statement for Outbound Hotels in one word, it's connection. It's connection to the outdoors, connection to the fellow travelers, connections to the local communities. Yeah, we often internally, when we talk through the business, we often say we're not in the hotel business, we're in the connection business. So it's really about connection and connecting all those threads together to create something special. Um, as far as specifically how we do it, so we kind of look at connection having a stool with three legs. The first leg of the stool will be on the front end, is how we design and program a property. So we have to think through these things in the front end. Specifically, we'll create essentially what are outdoor lobbies with fire pits, pools, hot tubs, food and beverage, meeting space. It's called Outbound. It's about being outside, right? So how do we program those spaces to foster the connections? So that's the first leg of the stool. The second leg of the stool is really partnerships. How can we partner with other like-minded brands to help create special experiences and help create a vibe that fosters, connection. So on the national level, we've got a lot of partnerships. We have partnered with Teva, the shoe hiking boot company, Normatec recovery boots, Oru kayaks at our locations. In Jackson specifically, we have a partnership with Patagonia Films, which is really cool. They go out and they do film screenings for their films in our courtyard. So that's a really cool partnership that really is kind of helps connect, guests to the kind of the spirit of the outdoors. As far as local connections, each property, will typically partner with local retailers, both, bike rentals, ski, outdoor gear. We have a lot of, local partnerships. Um, in that vein, we also, on a couple of the properties, partner with sauna companies. They have mobile saunas. They bring them in a couple times a week, and we have programming revolved around that. In Stowe, I mentioned there's just an amazing pool. It's the largest outdoor pool in Stowe. So we do day passes for locals there, and partner with local businesses, local restaurants and whatnot to, kind of create a vibe and create a unique experience. In Mammoth, we have a food truck, a local food truck that is on our site permanently, and they operate it, and we give them the real estate to operate it. And that's by far the most popular food truck in Mammoth. And it's a way just to give it gives our guests another option besides our on-site restaurants, brings the locals in. So, really the second leg of school, the partnerships, is really important. And the third leg of the stool is activations. How do we create events that really foster connection? We've done, just some examples. We do live music at all our properties, 2, 3, 4 times a week, depending on the season. We've done outdoor open fire cooking with celebrity chefs at both Stowe and in Jackson. Um, we have weekly kind of recurring events in our food and beverage outlets that really draw on the local community. I think most notably, we have a notorious karaoke night at the restaurant or the saloon at our Jackson Hole property, which is very popular and kind of a scene in town that everyone goes to. On a larger scale, we've been doing what we call the Outbound Music Series, where we partner. It's a one-off where we partner with larger musical acts. We've partnered with Andrew Bird, with Father John Misty, with RyX. So those are bigger production events. You do them, kind of one-off events, but really, these activations are the third leg of the stool and really key to fostering that connection that we're striving to connect people.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm tempted by that karaoke night. Sounds very, very fun. Well, obviously we're speaking off of some big news from Outbound, and there's two new locations and a new partnership with CoralTree Hospitality, which we're going to get to. But first, will you tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about these two new locations for Outbound?
Yeah. So Outbound Yosemite is opening kind of late Q1 of next year. It's located in Oakhurst, California, which is the south gate of Yosemite National Park. So I don't know if you've been to Yosemite, but it's got 4 or 5 kind of gateway towns. And Oakhurst is the busiest gate. Is the south gate. It's where LA and some of San Francisco kind of funnel through to get to the park. So, great market, next to adjacent to probably the most, iconic national park in the country. And it's on 17 acres. It's going to be 104 standalone cabins. And then there's 14 kind of lodge style rooms on top of the lodge we're building. So the lodge is going to have meeting space, food and beverage, um, back of house offices, that kind of thing. And then uh, traditional keys above it. So you'll have a mix similar to a lot of the other properties. You're going to have a mix of room types. Um, I think what's unique about this property is it's got over 5,000 square feet of kind of indoor-outdoor meeting space, mostly indoor, um, which we think there's a huge need in the market for meeting space. There's just not a lot, and given the proximity to some of these larger markets like LA and San Francisco, there's a real opportunity to really push group business and differentiate ourselves. And then the restaurant on site's called Juniper, and it's it's gonna be approachable kind of pizza forward menu with local nods to the region. There's not a lot of good pizza in Oakhurst, so we decided to fill that niche with that outlet. So going back to the earlier part of the conversation, how are we differentiating ourselves from the comp set? I think two ways. Number one, we're the only lifestyle kind of full service hotel in the market. So we're filling that niche and going to differentiate ourselves from the comp set in that manner. And then with the outdoor, with the meeting space, it's really going to give us the opportunity to create unique social events, corporate retreats, community events. So we're very, very excited about this property. So that's the Outbound Yosemite property. And then no rest for the wicked. About a month later, we're going to be opening up our property in Sedona, Arizona, another, iconic market. In my mind, it's a top 3 market in the States for, kind of what we're doing. And that is situated on 18 acres. It's kind of just minutes from Uptown Sedona. I don't know if you've ever been to Sedona, but Uptown's kind of the main drag, super congested. That's where a lot of the retail is, or just on the edge of that. But the 18 acres is one of one in the market. No one has a site as spectacular as ours. It's 138 rooms. We're not adding any rooms to this property. We're just renovating the existing inventory. It has an existing spa, which we're putting a pretty big investment in. It's going to have a dry sauna, cold plunge, private treatment rooms, and adults only pool. So that'll actually be our first spa that we own and operate our properties. But I think it definitely fits with the kind of outbound theme. So we're excited about that component of it. We are building the second food and beverage outlet is called Lasita. Sorry, the only food and beverage outlet is called
Mhm.
Lasita. It's going to be kind of Southwest flavors. It's a beautiful space. It's on a terrace, kind of overlooking the courtyard with incredible views of the Red Rocks. So that'll be opening as well. And then uh, we are building a new pool complex. We're actually branding it. It's so spectacular. We're calling it Moonwater. It's going to have upper, lower decks, dual hot tubs, fire pits, incredible Red Rock views. So very excited about that. Once again, going back to how are we differentiating ourselves, or how are we thinking through points of differentiation? Listen, this courtyard is going to be one of one in Sedona. It's spectacular. It used to be a 9-hole golf course. So that gives you the um, kind of insight into the scope of the actual courtyard. And building, we're gonna have the best pool in Sedona, hands down. We're spending 7 figures to build this pool complex, and it's going to be totally unique to Sedona and spectacular. And no one in our comp set, or frankly in the market, will have anything I think this compelling.
Mhm. Yeah, we do not need to go off on a Sedona tangent, but when I went, I definitely felt like there was something like missing from the hospitality landscape. Everything is so expensive and not necessarily fitting the kind of it's such a beautiful place. There's so many great restaurants, but I felt like there wasn't anything that wasn't like super, super extreme luxury uh, that
Hmm.
I personally could enjoy. Um, so like the lower tier options were just like such a sacrifice, I felt like. I mean, I don't know.
Hmm.
So I feel like this is going to be really great for that area. And, I loved the nature aspect of it, but I don't really feel the need to go back anytime soon until I heard the description of Outbound Sedona. And I'm like,
Perfect.
maybe next year sometime. But yeah, so that sounds great, and it is an interesting market, and that's exciting to kind of hear that that's coming. What's kind of the difference in doing a new build or a conversion? Is one more attractive than the other? Or are you kind of taking it day by day?
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, we're opportunistic real estate investors. So we will
Mhm,
look at both scenarios. I will say there's a much higher bar for a ground up development project, just given the risk profile. They're harder to finance.
mhm,
You're taking a lot more construction risk. So given the choice, would rather buy something, do a heavy renovation and convert it than going ground up. But I think
mhm,
Oakhurst was a unique example where we wanted to be in the market. We looked at a couple properties. They just didn't check enough boxes for us. We found this site. We found a local partner who contributed the real estate to the venture. And, we were able to de-risk the investment on the front end.
mhm.
So that was a big, it's just a lot more boxes to check. We're a lot more selective about doing ground up.
Yeah. Well, and conversions come with a challenge too. You really have to find that right property that
Yeah.
you can
Hmm.
convert to. So,
Correct. Yeah.
so with this announcement of the two new properties, you also named CoralTree Hospitality as an exclusive operating partner. So, how did this deal come about, and what really kind of made CoralTree the ideal partner for Outbound?
Yeah, so we've known the Coral Tree folks for a while. They were formerly Destination Hotels, which became Two Roads, which did a big brand roll up and sold at a um, really great exit to Hyatt. So we, started out, we knew them, they were friends. We were picking their brain on, hey, when you were working on Two Roads, how did you think about this problem? Or how did you approach this scenario? Or how did you raise capital? Um, they became kind of a sounding board and advisors to us on how we were making decisions at the brand level. And that just morphed into, hey, you know, we do this for, Coral said, hey, we do this for a living. This is our niche. We do independent resort. a lot of lifestyle type properties, we should, when you have another, when you have a new deal come about, like we should talk. And so, we started talking more and more. And then they really came to us and pitched us on a scenario where, hey, if we become your exclusive operating partner, we'll build out a team solely dedicated to outbound hotels. And that was really compelling to us. Because we're always striving. When you work with a third party manager, you're always trying to align interests. You always want them to think like an owner, but sometimes you know that can be difficult. But the way we approached it with CoralTree is, all right, if you put some investment into your company, you create this kind of outbound team specific team, you're putting real skin in the game. You're making real investments. And so, those conversations went on for a while, and the more we kind of fleshed out the idea, the more we liked it. And I think, from our perspective, we want to have an owner mentality. We want to have the benefits of vertical integration, where you own and operate. But for us, building out a management platform was impractical. We've done it in the past at Waterton. It takes a lot of capital. It takes a lot of time, and we didn't want to be distracted from our goal of building the brand and building the real estate portfolio. So we felt this was a great way to really kind of get the benefits of vertical integration, but not have to, lay out the capital and take on all the costs to build out a, dedicated management platform. So that was the thought process behind it. And through this partnership, we're going to benefit from, their SOPs, their regional infrastructure. They have group sales offices throughout the country, which is really, I think, powerful. And you don't see that a lot from kind of mid-sized management companies. So it really allows us to bring in a partner, have them operate the assets, have the peace of mind knowing that they're true owners in both the brand and the portfolio, and they're going to treat this, as an owner would. And we get the kind of the benefits of the kind of robust infrastructure that come about because of the partnership. And then the bottom line is they're good people. And not to say that other partners we had in the past are not good people, but I think it's really important to, when you get into a partnership, that you have alignment of interests and values and enjoy being around people. I think that's probably the most important thing. So that's kind of the thought process and kind of how we're going to work together going forward.
Yeah, for that, is it kind of just moving into these newer properties, or is the whole outbound portfolio going to be with CoralTree?
It's a whole portfolio, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Nice. Well, I want to, as we kind of wrap up on our conversation today, I want to kind of zoom out a little bit because I'm fascinated by this concept of nature first adventure travel. And just very outside perspective is that it does seem to be growing. So I
Hmm.
wonder if you could talk a little bit about what exactly is driving that growth in this niche type of travel, and what trends do you see in this space as well?
Yeah, so it's definitely a growing space. I think there's room for multiple players, even in our price point and kind of where we're positioned. Um, I see a few trends driving this. I think one is just social media, kind of influencer culture. A lot of influencer types go to the outdoor markets because they're very aspirational places to visit, right? So I think the social media trends are driving some of the traffic to these markets. I think there's an increased interest in national parks. If you look at the growth and visitation of national parks over the last 30 years, it's been compounding every year, and more people are interested in going to national parks. I think another factor driving the growth is what Altera and Vail have done with the Icon and Epic passes. It's really made skiing more accessible. It's opened skiing up to a whole new swath of customers. I think it's really smart what they've done. So if you look at most, over the last 20, 30 years, most ski visitations have grown. So I think that's a trend. I think, listen, younger generations, it's harder and harder to buy a house. So they're diverting some of their funds that maybe they would have been saving up to buy a home 25, 30 years ago. Now they're diverting that to travel, and travel as a whole, just not the outdoor travel space, has been a bit beneficiary of that trend. So that's definitely, I think, a macro trend that's driving, you know, traffic to these destinations. I think the focus on wellness, it has also, diverted people to these locations. So I think those are the trends, or kind of the tailwinds that are driving the visitation of these markets forward. Um, I think, what does that mean for our business? It means, I think we've seen a huge, even in the last 4 years, increase in group business in these markets. So both, you know, leisure business, but also corporate business, are more and more interested, instead of, doing an offsite in Miami or Vegas or somewhere. They're more and more going to Jackson Hole. They're going to, LA companies are coming up to Mammoth. And that's been that's why we're really, we spend a lot of time thinking through meeting space and how can we provide a unique meeting experience. Because we're seeing definitely seeing an increase in group business in these markets. Listen, we're more and more leaning into wellness. I wouldn't say we're a wellness brand by any means. They're probably wellness adjacent, maybe. But we're spending more and more time. How do we program the properties, the saunas, cold plunges? We have a spa, obviously, in our Sedona property. So how can we think through what the outbound vision is for wellness? I think, is how it's affected our business. I think, the other thing on the wellness front that's been interesting is the rise of kind of non-alcoholic cocktails, mocktails. It's becoming a larger and larger share of our beverage revenue at the properties, and it's you pay $14 for a mocktail. It's a good margin business. So that's affected us as well. So those are some of the ways that we're adjusting to some of these trends, in the space.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I hate to bring up the pandemic, but I do feel like that happened, right? Like people wanted to have more experiential stays, more space in kind of the years following the pandemic. And I think a lot of the observations of that was that it was a trend and that it wasn't, you know, gonna have staying power. But clearly what we've seen is, the idea of having an experiential outdoor stay stuck around. Do you feel like, how do you regard that kind of pop in popularity in the years following the pandemic to now? Did it kickstart things or did it blip and then we circled back? I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I think Kickstart's a good way to put it. It kickstarted it. We, um, haven't seen, you know, any meaningful pullback in any of our markets since the pandemic. A little on the edges, and like obviously the economy is a little shaky at the moment. Interest rates are high, things like that. But no, I think it really kickstarted the movement to these markets. We feel it's a long-term secular trend. We don't think
Mhm.
it's a blip. And listen, I hate the word bleisure. I don't know who made it up. I think it's like a terrible term, but um, it's a real thing, and it's persisting. Listen, like people aren't going to be global nomads for the most part and not be tethered to an office. But I think what we are seeing is, I think Fridays for a lot of companies are, you know, that's a thing of the past. I mean, most companies now, you might be coming in the office 4 days a week, but a lot of people are working remote on Fridays. So that drives the business. That, if you've got that extra day, hey, maybe I'm gonna take off Friday, and maybe I'll head to Jackson Thursday night, work for half a day for my hotel room, and then extend the weekend. So we're seeing that trend still, but it's not this, utopia where no one goes to an office, and like
Mhm.
people live in Jackson Hole year round, and yeah, have no residence, and that didn't play out, and we don't see
Mhm.
it playing out. But there is still some of that bleisure type of business coming to these markets.
Mhm. Yes. Well, work from home Fridays are definitely a thing for a lot of companies, unless you work for a real estate company, I would have to add, unfortunately for me. No, but this has been great. And, you've touched on a couple of trends and how outbound is really kind of taking advantage of those trends in this space, from the group business and wellness development you're doing. But what else can you kind of tell us about the future for Outbound and what y'all are really heads down focused on bringing in the next year, 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, so I think our real focus is growing the portfolio. Once again, not compromising in the markets we're going into. I'm sworn to secrecy, but we're working on another deal in a very iconic market that we should be ready to announce by the end of the year. So I'll give you a call, Natalie, and
Yeah.
we can talk through that project. So we do have a pretty robust pipeline with some actionable deals that we're looking at. I think, we'd like to get to the point where we're doing 2 to 3 deals a year. I think that's, thoughtful growth is the key term there. We want to do it where we're not compromising on locations and, we're buying good deals or building good properties allow us to differentiate, like I talked about. So, really thoughtful growth, continue to grow the portfolio and see where it goes. We're having a lot of fun. So, I think maybe when we aren't having fun anymore, we'll reassess, but it's it's a pretty great life to be able to travel to Jackson Hole and Stowe, Vermont and Sedona on business trips. So I'm not complaining, and the team is energized. And as long as the team is energized and excited, we'll continue to grow and see where this takes us.
All right. Well, that's so exciting to hear and such a great positive way to wrap up. It was so interesting learning all about Outbound. Matt, thank you again for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Natalie. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Hi, I'm Davon Reed.
I'm Omari Head.
And I'm Chris Henry.
We're the hosts of the Next Gen and Lodging podcast. It's a monthly show in which we interview a new generation of hoteliers to get their insights into a variety of disciplines and topics, from finance to food and beverage and hotel operations. Listen to us on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode of the CoStar News Hotels podcast was recorded on October 15th, 2025 by Natalie Harms and edited by Rachel Daub. Look for this and more at costar.com/hotelnews.